Chapter 1, Section 2, Humans Try to Control Nature. So we're going to go back about 40,000 years ago. Homo sapiens now look very similar to people today. They're just a little bit shorter, but overall they look pretty similar to what people look like in the 21st century. And what's happened in regards to change of society is the agricultural revolution. People have now changed the way they get food. Instead of hunting and gathering in groups, they stay in one spot and they farm. They realize this is a more efficient way to get more food, more production. So now you're having more babies as well, and you're beginning to see classes emerge. So how people did this was through slash and burn agriculture. This is where you clear land through cutting and burning trees, and then once the soil is ready to use it for a few years, and once it's not, you go ahead and move on to new territory. Now, it's actually a methodology still used today. Roughly 200 to 500 million people still use this way of agriculture, which is about 5 to 10% of the type of agriculture used in regards to farming, and it's more common in Africa and South America as well as Southeast Asia. Now, there's a lot of debate about the positives and negatives. So the reason why area may use slash and burn farming is because it's easy. Right? It's easy to do. You just burn down the forest, use the soil there. It's an easy way to farm. Now the negatives are pretty obvious, that it's not a sustainable system. Right? You can only use the same land for a few years and you have to move on. And there's only so much of earth left. So therefore slash and burn farming is not really a sustainable way for humankind to farm, which is why it's less than 10% today. All right, early advances in technology. So as people became more advanced, they figured out how to create weapons that are better to hunt other animals. They figured out various tools they can use to use animals they hunted to sew them up to make clothing. People figured out how to carve up, animal teeth to create fish hooks. More and more technology is getting advanced. We also see a big change in domestication. So human beings are realizing it's just easier to tame the wild animals and keep them instead of having to hunt for them every time over and over. So now you have chickens with eggs, you have pigs that mate at a really high rate, constantly providing you with a consistent source of food. You also have the domestication of dogs, also known as man's best friend. And dogs are especially interesting because they used to help us hunt. Today, obviously, not many people use dogs for hunting, but for example, there are about 400,000 service dogs in the USA today, over 500,000 in the world, where dogs help people with PTSD or the blind. So this domestication has been a real positive for mankind. Now, an interesting case with agriculture today is how we have more people who are obese, but we also have many people who are hungry. So even though obesity has doubled since 1989, we still have 1 billion people who go hungry to bed each night. And this is relevant to an interesting topic, a very divisive issue in the United States today, which is GMOs. So this issue of GMOs, I want to go over some positives and negatives of why people may want genetically engineered food. So reasons why it's a good thing is because they're efficient. They help create more food or bigger versions of the same type of food. It also helps create strong crops that may normally be vulnerable towards bad weather or certain insects. They're stronger and may not be affected by those things. It also helps improve taste. Right? If you ever had an apple that's genetically modified to have sort of the honeyish taste inside, it tastes excellent. And finally, it has the potential to enhance nutrients. By genetically modifying the type of produce, you can sometimes add an extra bit of vitamin C, B, A, etc. Now, it's not all positives. There are negatives. So first of all, there's environmental risk. These genetically modified foods can sometimes change the way certain insects are in that area, and it can affect, it can sort of create a butterfly effect. It can affect one thing which will affect another, it can overall make negative effect in the environment altogether. There's also unknown long-term effects. Genetically modified foods is something very recent, and the long-term effects are still unknown. And finally, this is a key one, the economical effects in regards to bankruptcy of small farmers. So because genetically modified companies that sell genetically modified seeds are have a lot of power. Once they sell their seeds and farmers start using them, often the next season the same small farmers have to buy from the same company. And in that case, there's been cases in the past where big conglomerate, companies with a lot of money have started charging more money towards farmers, which have led them towards bankruptcy or not being able to sustain their farms because their new farms can only use the genetically modified seeds, which they can only buy from certain companies. So yeah, very interesting topic. We'll go over in more depth in class. We also see around this time period the earliest river civilizations, which again we'll go into each one into detail in the future, emerge. Right? We see from the west Nile, the Nile River with ancient Egypt. We see the Tigris and Euphrates, the Mesopotamians. We see in the Indus River, the Harappan and Vedic civilizations, and finally in the east, in the Yellow River, we see the Shang dynasty beginning to emerge. Why rivers? Well, because rivers can provide water for people to drink, and also it can also provide a good source of irrigation for agriculture. So we'll finish off with two terms, the Neolithic Iceman and Çatalhöyük. So we'll start off with the Neolithic Iceman, otherwise known as Ötz. So Ötz was discovered just a mere 30 years ago or so when two German hikers accidentally came across his remains. And he is the oldest mummy we've ever found, and probably what's most important about this very mysterious figure is what he was carrying. He was carrying various tools with him, whether it be an axe, he also had a knife. He actually had this little pouch as well, like a little tool kit carrier. Otz was about 5'6", and he had 60-something tattoos on him. And we're not really sure why he had those tattoos, most likely some sort of spiritual thing. And the reason of his death was subject to debate for a while, but most historians agree today that most likely he was either killed in a battle because of the arrow that was stuck in his body, or he may have been sacrificed before, and before he was sacrificed, the arrow was used to hunt him down. Now, the second term is Çatalhöyük. This is found in modern-day Turkey. This is the best preserved Neolithic site to date. And here various remains are found, including paintings, religious shrines, sculptures, and it's a best preserved Neolithic site to date. And some interesting points about Çatalhöyük is that there were no public buildings. They're all domestic living spaces. We saw the earliest sort of forms of houses, so these mud brick houses. There were no streets at all. And it showed us, though, that people were settled. That's a key thing, is that it was no longer a hunting-gathering society, that clearly these people were living there, they were staying there, and they were proof that clearly there was a shift from hunting and gathering towards a more stationed, non-moving society of agriculture. So again, it's pronounced Çatalhöyük. And that concludes section 2 of chapter 1. Have an excellent day. Goodbye.